The Southern African Development Community is an intergovernmental organization headquartered in Gaborone, Botswana. Its goal is to further socio-economic cooperation and integration as well as political and security cooperation among 15 Southern African states. It complements the role of the African Union. Member states: SADC has 15 member states: Angola, Botswana, a Democratic Republic of the Congo, since September 8, 1997, Lesotho, Madagascar. Membership reinstated on January 30, 2014 after an imposed suspension in 2009, Malawi, Mauritius since August 28, 1995, Mozambique, Namibia since March 31, 1990, Seychelles also previously been a member of SADC from September 8, 1997 until July 1, 2004, then joined again in 2008. South Africa since August 30, 1994, Swaziland, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe. History: the origins of SADC lie in the 1960s and 1970s, when the leaders of majority-ruled countries and national liberation movements coordinated their political, diplomatic and military struggles to bring an end to colonial and white minority rule in southern Africa. The immediate forerunner of the political and security cooperation leg of today's SADC was the informal Frontline States grouping. It was formed in 1980. The Southern African Development Coordination Conference was the forerunner of the socio-economic cooperation leg of today's SADC. The adoption by 9 majority-ruled Southern African countries of the Lusaka Declaration on April 1, 1980 paved the way for the formal establishment of SADCC in April 1980. Membership of the FLS and SADCC sometimes differed. SADCC was transformed into SADC on August 17, 1992, with the adoption by the founding members of SADCC and newly independent Namibia of the Windhoek Declaration and Treaty establishing SADC. The 1992 SADC provided for both socio-economic cooperation and political and security cooperation. In reality, the FLS was dissolved only in 1994, after South Africa's first democratic elections. Subsequent efforts to place political and security cooperation on a firm institutional footing under SADC's umbrella failed. On August 14, 2001, the 1992 SADC Treaty was amended. The amendment heralded the overhaul of the structures, policies and procedures of SADC, a process which is ongoing. One of the changes is that political and security cooperation is institutionalized in the organ on politics, defense and security. One of the principal SADC bodies, it is subject to the oversight of the organization's supreme body, the Summit, which comprises the heads of state or government. The organization holds its own multi-sport event in the form of the SADC Games, which was first held in 2004 in Maputo. Originally planned for an earlier date in Malawi and Lesotho, organizational issues led to abandonment of the plan and the SADC issuing a fine of $100 against Malawi. The first event in 2004 in Maputo resulted in over 1,000 youths under 20 from 10 countries taking part in a sports program including athletics, football, netball, boxing and basketball. SADC Protocols. SADC has 27 legally binding protocols dealing with issues such as defense, development, illicit drug trade, free trade and movement of people. SADC FTA. The SADC Free Trade Area was initiated in 2000. Its original members were the SACU countries. Next to join were Mauritius, Zimbabwe, and Madagascar. In 2008 Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zambia joined, bringing the total number of SADC FTA members to 12. Angola, Dr. Congo and Seychelles are not yet participating. On Wednesday 22 October 2008, SADC joined with a common market for Eastern and Southern Africa and the East African Community to form the African Free Trade Zone, including all members of each of the organizations. The leaders of the 3 trading blocs agreed to create a single free trade zone, the African Free Trade Zone, consisting of 26 countries with a GDP of an estimated $624 billion. It is hoped the African Free Trade Zone Agreement would ease access to markets within the zone and end problems arising from the fact that several of the member countries belong to multiple groups. The African Free Trade Zone effective has been more than 100 years in the making, a trade zone spanning the whole African continent from Cape to Cairo and envisioned by Cecil Rhodes and other British imperialists in the 1890s. The only difference is that the African Free Trade Zone is the creation of independent African countries. The idea is a free trade zone spanning the whole continent from the Cape to Cairo. In addition to eliminating duplicative membership and the problem member states also participating in other regional economic cooperation schemes and regional political and security cooperation schemes that may compete with or undermine each other, the African Free Trade Zone further aims to strengthen the bloc's bargaining power when negotiating international deals. Challenges facing member countries. SADC countries face many social, development, economic, trade, education, health, diplomatic, defense, security and political challenges. Some of these challenges cannot be tackled effectively by individual members. Cattle diseases and organized crime gangs know no boundaries. War in one country can suck in its neighbors and damage their economies. The sustainable development that trade could bring is threatened by the existence of different product standards and tariff regimes, weak customs infrastructure and bad roads. The socio-economic and political and security cooperation aims of SADC are equally wide-ranging, and intended to address the various common challenges. One significant challenge is that member states also participate in other regional economic cooperation schemes and regional political and security cooperation schemes that may compete with or undermine SADC's aims. For example, South Africa and Botswana both belong to the Southern Africa Customs Union, Zambia is a part of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, and Tanzania is a member of the East African Community. Aims. SADC's aims are set out in different sources. The sources include the treaty establishing the organization, various protocols, development and cooperation plans such as the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan and the Strategic Indicative Plan of the organ, and declarations such as those on HIV and AIDS and food security. Not all of the pre-2001 treaties and plans have been harmonized with the more detailed and recent plans such as the RISDP and SIPO. In some areas, mere coordination of national activities and policies is the aim of cooperation. In others, the member states aim at more far-reaching forms of cooperation. For example, on foreign policy the main aim is coordination and cooperation, but in terms of trade and economic policy, a tighter coordination is in progress with a view to one day establishing a common market with common regulatory institutions. SADC has recently received the top position in a global comparison of indicators of water cooperation prepared by international think tank Strategic Foresight Group. SADC has scored 100 in the Water Cooperation Quotient, which examines active cooperation by riparian countries in the management of water resources using 10 parameters, including legal, political, technical, environmental, economic and institutional aspects. High performance in the Water Cooperation Quotient also means low risk of war between countries in the concerned river basin. To reduce economic dependence of SADC countries on South Africa. Structure and decision-making procedures. The organization has 8 principal bodies: the Summit, comprising heads of state or heads of government, Organ on Politics, Defense and Security, Council of Ministers, SADC Tribunal, SADC National Committees, Secretariat, except for the Tribunal, SNCs and Secretariat. Decision-making is by consensus. Leaders. Chairperson, Executive Secretaries, comparison with other regional blocks, timeline, 2007, November 2nd. A Euro-rail link from Chipata to Mpika proposed, providing shorter access to sea at Nakala. 2008, April 12. Confusion surrounds Mugabe's appearance at crisis meeting, see also, Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, East African Community, Economic Community of Central African States, Southern African Customs Union, Economic Community of West African States, List of trade blocs, references. Further reading, Gabrielle Oosthuizen, The Southern African Development Community, the Organization, Its History, Policies and Prospects. Institute for Global Dialogue, Midrand, South Africa, 2006. John McCormick, The European Union, Politics and Policies. Westview Press, Boulder, Colorado, 2004. Ramsamy, Priga 2003 Global Partnership for Africa. Presentation at the Human Rights Conference on Global Partnerships for Africa Unregistered Trademark S Development, Gaborone, SADC, external links, official website, Agritrade website covering trade issues in Southern Africa.